I used to believe my worth was tied to the man who ruled over me. For most of my life, that man was my father. My name is Khadija, and this is a story I never thought I would have the courage to tell. If you are reading these words, know that it comes not from a place of bitterness, but from a heart that has been broken, healed, and forever changed. I was born into a devout Muslim household in a small desert city where my father was a highly respected sheikh. His authority reached far beyond the walls of our home. When he entered the mosque, men stood. When he spoke, silence fell. At home, his word was law, unquestionable, final, and sacred. To the world outside, we were a blessed family. But behind the gates of our compound, we lived as prisoners. As one of many children, I learned early on that obedience meant survival. My father had 2 wives and dozens of children, yet I often felt invisible, just another name on his endless list. Still, I tried to be the daughter he wanted, quiet, compliant, never lifting my eyes to men, never questioning his summons. Outwardly, I was the picture of obedience. Inside, I was starving, not for food, though some nights even that was scarce, but for something I could not name. I longed to be seen, not as a servant, not as property, but as a human being. At night, I would sneak onto the rooftop and whisper prayers to the stars. Allah, do you see me? Do you care about me, or only about the rules? The silence of heaven pressed against me, and I began to wonder if my voice would ever be heard. By the time I turned 20, I had become responsible for many household duties, especially helping my father's younger wife who had little experience. I memorized unspoken rules, managed gatherings, and served guests with a smile that rarely reached my eyes. Like any other daughter in our culture, I expected that one day I would be married off to someone of my father's choosing. But marriage, I assumed, would mean leaving my father's authority to live under another man's roof. I never expected what came next. One evening, after the Isha praise, my father summoned me to his study. I entered with my head bowed, hands clasped tightly in front of me. He spoke gently at first, calling me obedient, pure, and loyal. My heart swelled with a strange mix of pride and unease. Then came the words that froze my blood. Khadija, I have chosen you for myself. You will be my wife. For a moment, I thought I had misheard him. Your wife? I whispered. He nodded, smiling with a confidence that made me sick. He quoted verses, spoke of the Prophet's special permissions, and told me this was halal before Allah. He promised me honor, saying no woman in the city would ever be held in such esteem. My knees trembled, my vision blurred. Inside, I screamed, "You are my father. How can this be?" But the words never left my lips. That night, my world split in two. The man I have feared and obeyed all my life was no longer just my father. He was now claiming my body, my future, and my soul in the name of God. My mother could not protect me. My siblings would not dare question him. In our household, his word was divine decree. 2 weeks later, the nightmare became reality. My father prepared his quarters like a wedding chamber. But there was no courtship, no celebration, and no choice. The air was thick with incense, the curtains drawn, and the table set with tea and dates. He told me tenderly but firmly, "Tonight, we begin our life as husband and wife. And do not call me Baba anymore." I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But my voice betrayed me. He quoted hadiths about obedience, warned me that angels would curse a disobedient wife, and reminded me that resisting him was resisting Allah himself. with every word, the walls around me closed in tighter. That night, I was not a daughter. I was not even a wife in the true sense of the word. I was simply claimed, silenced, and broken. The days that followed were worse than the night itself. My freedom shrank even smaller. Once, as a daughter, I could at least walk with other women to the market or sit with my cousins. Now, as his wife, I was hidden away, veiled from the world. At family gatherings, he would call me his beloved in front of others, as if daring anyone to challenge him. None did. My shame grew unbearable, yet I had no escape. Outwardly, I poured his tea and smiled when commanded. Inwardly, I was dying, and so I prayed. Not the memorized salah I had known since childhood, but desperate cries whispered into the darkness. Allah, if you're real, see me. If you are merciful, rescue me. Yet the silence pressed harder, and doubt crept in like poison. Was God truly good if this was His will for me? Was my suffering sacred, or had I been deceived all my life? One day, while dusting my father's shelves, I came across the Quran he used for teaching. My eyes fell on Surah 33:50, and the words seemed to confirm everything he had told me, that men of God had permission to claim women as they wished. My hands shook as I closed the book. For the first time in my life, I wondered if perhaps the silence of heaven was not indifference, but agreement, and that thought terrified me more than anything. I carried that terror like a splinter under my skin, hidden, but cutting me with every movement. I no longer prayed the way I had before. Instead, I whispered into the darkness, if you are real and you are good, show me. Please, I cannot do this anymore. I didn't know who I was speaking to. I only knew I was desperate. One night, something happened that would change me forever. I drifted into what felt like sleep, but it wasn't ordinary sleep. In my vision, I stood barefoot in a vast desert under a silver sky. My torn abaya fluttered in the wind. Then I saw him, a man clothed in radiant white, walking toward me. His presence was unlike anything I had ever felt. Not heavy like my father's authority, not distant like Allah's silence, but near, tender, and overwhelming with love. He looked into my eyes and said words that pierced my soul. Khadija, you are mine. I fell to my knees weeping. All I could whisper was, who are you? He smiled, not with pity, but with compassion, and replied, I am the one who has always seen you. The warmth of his presence filled every broken place inside me. I woke up with tears on my face, trembling but strangely at peace. I didn't know his name yet, but I knew this was no dream. This was real. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. Days later, I secretly searched for testimonies on my stepmother's old phone. To my astonishment, I discovered stories from other Muslims who had seen this same man in white. They called him Jesus. Some said he appeared in visions, others in dreams, always with the same message of love. My heart raced. Could it be him? Could the one who met me in the desert of my soul be the same Jesus I had been told was only a prophet? I wanted to believe, but fear still gripped me. My father's house was no place to seek the truth about Jesus. One afternoon, my younger brother caught me watching a testimony online. Within the hour, my father and the imam confronted me, accusing me of listening to Shaitan. Locked in my room, I whispered through my tears, Jesus, I don't know much about you, but I know you saw me. Please don't leave me now. In that locked room, something shifted, fear loosened its grip, and Shema lifted like a veil being torn away. Peace, fragile but undeniable, settled over me. It was as if chains had been broken inside me, even while the door outside remained locked. The answer to my cries came through an unlikely source, a neighbor woman named Illa. She had always been kind, offering me bread or herbs quietly. One night, she whispered through my door, "Khadija, I know what they've done. I am a Christian. I can help you leave my breath caught in my throat." I had never heard anyone say, "I am a Christian," without scorn. But that night, those words were salvation. Together, we slipped out of the compound through a hidden gate I never knew existed. Each step away felt both terrifying and miraculous. At her home, she gave me bread and water, then asked, "Do you want to follow Jesus?" My heart raced. I remembered the man in white, the warmth, the words, "You are mine." With tears streaming down my face, I whispered, "Yes, I believe you are real. I give you my life." There was no thunder, no vision this time, just peace, deep, unshakable peace. That night, I belonged not to my father, not to shame, but to Christ. Soon, Illa led me to an underground church. There were no minarets, no grand buildings, just a dozen believers gathered in a living room, their faces glowing with joy I had never seen in the mosque. When I entered, they welcomed me as if I had always belonged. They gave me a new name, Miriam, and they baptized me in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. When I rose from the water, it felt like every chain that had bound me sank beneath the surface. I was free. My father later declared me dead to the family, but I had already been given new life. Yes, I carry scars. I still flinch at certain sounds, still ache for the siblings I may never see again. But I know now, I am not my father's property. I am not the Sheik's wife. I am not the shame of my family. I am the daughter of the King. And if Jesus could find me in the darkest silence, he can find anyone. That is why I share my story. Not so you remember my pain, but so you remember my freedom. Once I was claimed in sin, now I am claimed in love. Once I was silenced, now I speak in grace. I live not as the Sheik's wife, but as the King's beloved daughter.